What is the color of money? What color is a medium of exchange? What does money or a medium of exchange feel, smell, sound, or taste like? Emphasis on that word, like. In other words, how can we possibly compare the traits or characteristics of an intangible to a familiar physical or tangible object? I don't think it can be done. Which is why we don't say that a medium of exchange tastes sweet like maple syrup, because it does not respond to the 5 human senses, it being a medium of exchange. One of those 5 human senses being taste. Money is not a gas, liquid, or solid. A medium of exchange is not a gas, liquid, or solid. But various objects have been used throughout history as money or as a medium of exchange. And they are all known to be solids at room temperature. If money is an abstract idea that cannot be perceived by your 5 human senses, then how could you know for certain that you have any? Well, there isn't any money in circulation, which is why I can offer 100 pounds of it free, and I've done that over and over and again. Okay. The only reason the general public believes a sum of money resides in their bank account is because their banker says so. If their next bank statement says it's not there, it's not there. Money and medium of exchange are both intangible and are synonymous expressions. One simply able to stand as a substitute for the other. Like the word lake can substitute or is equivalent to a body of water completely surrounded by land. But can you use a lake as a body of water completely surrounded by land? I doubt it. Is a body of water completely surrounded by land used as a lake? I doubt it. So again, we can use something like silver as money, or we can use silver as a medium of exchange, but we cannot use a medium of exchange as money, or money as a medium of exchange. We can, however, use tangible silver or gold as a medium of exchange or money. We'll expand upon this in the next maxim of monetary science, which is number 8. Quote, money need not be made of any precious material. Wow. End quote. These engineers are so enamored with abstract mathematics and so devoid of common sense as to be absolutely certain that it makes no difference whatsoever if you use something as money or you don't. This absurdity precedes the authors by a few centuries, based on a slick theory molded by bankers who say, well, since credit produces the same effects as money, does it? It does produce some effects, but not all the same. They say that since credit produces the same effects as money, it's just as good as money. Then, by linking one faulty premise to the next, they say that credit becomes money. In fact, they now say that credit is even better than money. This is spelled out, by the way, in Volume 2 of My History of Banking and All the Leading Nations, edited by William Graham Sumner. And I may go into that in detail in another broadcast, but they go to great lengths in 2 chapters. One's on the theory of banking and the other one's on the theory of credit. They go to great lengths to try to prove that credit is better than money. And they use syllogisms to establish these. You know, you've got a major premise and a minor premise. You check the premises, and the premises are generally false. And they link one false premise to another. Now, that's kind of fun to actually go into, and we may do that. Anyway, beware. Since credit is banker's stock in trade, a conflict of interest is writ large and permeates the theory of banking and credit. Yet these authors don't suspect that there's a conflict of interest. Beware. Profiteers learn far more quickly the means by which to plunder the public than those unwary victims discover the means. Both the authors and bankers argue that money need not be made of any precious metal. Be it gold, silver, or imaginary credit, It's all the same thing. So here's how it plays out in real life. You open a savings account at your friendly bank downtown. Being a coin collector that you are, you want to keep your gold and your silver coins safe. And after all, you have a savings account. What better place to save it than in the savings account, right? So you go down to the bank and you deposit a $1 gold coin, 25.8 grains of 0.900 fine gold. They make an entry in your savings account book. And what does the entry look like? It'll have the number 1, a decimal point, and 2 zeros. If your bank is like the bank I used to deal with, I don't do business with banks. I haven't dealt with banks for probably 35 years. So back in those days, my bank would never put a dollar sign on anything that I deposited in any account, checking or savings. Okay? It's just the number 1.00. Go down the next day and deposit one of your silver coins. You know, one of those 412.5 grain, 0.900 fine silver coins, which most people erroneously call a silver dollar. It's actually a dollar weight of silver. Deposit that coin. And what do you get on your bank book? The number 1.00. On the bank book, it looks exactly like the gold coin, doesn't it? The next day, you go down to the bank and you deposit one of those 40% Eisenhower silver-clad coins. They only made those for a short while. Okay? What do you get for credit on your books? 1.00. Next day, you go down there and you deposit an Eisenhower copper-nickel slug. No silver in it. What does the deposit entry look like in your savings account book? 1.00. They're all the same, right? Like Mr. Warner and Mr. Thorne say, money need not be made of any precious metal. Well, if it doesn't have to be, then it doesn't make any difference what it's made out of, does it? It could be gold, it could be silver, it could be paper, it could be made out of nothing. And that's exactly what they use, nothing. Okay? So now the next day we go down to the bank and we have one of these Susan B. Anthony slugs, little bitty thing. It says $1 on it. You deposit that in your account, and what do you get? A number 1.00. Then you deposit a Federal Reserve note or one of those valuable United States notes that everybody seems to think is so great. What do you get for credit on your books? The number 1.00. Add them all up, and what do you have? 6.00. 6 what? Well, I can't tell you. Now, close out your account. What do you think you're going to get? I'll tell you what you're going to get. You're going to get a $5 bill and a $1 bill. What happened to the 90% pure gold, the 90% pure silver, and the 40% pure silver? Somebody took that. Why did they do that? Well, we're going to go to a history of banking in all the leading nations. I'm going to read to you real quickly from page 200, volume 2. This was published in 1896. When a customer pays in money to his banker, the property in it instantly and ipso facto vests in the banker. And the customer has nothing but a right of action against the person of the banker to demand back an equivalent sum. Period. Not bad. How'd you like to run a business like that? You see, it doesn't make any difference. The bankers agree with Mr. Thorne and Mr. Warner. So does Karl Marx. It doesn't make any difference what you use. Why is it that they take the gold and the silver? I guess they just think it's pretty. Okay. America's early textbooks on arithmetic would ask a student for the sum of 2 crows plus 2 crows, that's a bird, you know, to which the correct answer was 7 crows. But in mathematics, we add 2 plus 5 to get what? 7. 7 what? If you ask the deli clerk for 1 pound, sliced very thin because it improves the flavor, how could he or she possibly fill your order without including a known substance like maybe turkey to be weighed or measured? You know, we're talking about being at the delicatessen and asking for maybe a pound of something. No, just a pound, sliced very thin. But you got to have a substance identified in order to be able to get delivery. Okay. Yet when you go to the checkout counter, the clerk might say, well, the price is $7.99. And having listened to a lot of Datum line broadcasts, you decide to ask the clerk, $7.99 of what? Well, the answer used to be ascertainable as a $7.99 decimal weight of 90% pure gold or 90% pure silver. But today, you're going to get a dumbfounded look from a clerk who cannot begin to understand the nature of your question. According to Marxist populist groupthink, if you can get your groceries with a raw number printed on a bank account, then you must have paid for your groceries, just like you did in the old days when passing the clerk a piece of silver. Well, the fact is, you don't pay for anything today with a number. If you believe you delivered, they say, or paid out a sum of money, then evidently you did. Receiving a check for a car that you sold might feel good, until your honest banker tells you that the check bounced. But if you could be kept perpetually under the ether by a banker who was in cahoots with that car thief, you would never discover that the thief got your car for nothing. Nor would most people care, so long as they could pass this worthless instrument, these worthless dollars, off on another victim to get what they wanted in the way of real goods and services. You see, the Federal Reserve System vouches for the honesty of checks and legal tender notes written by government against no funds. That's why the public doesn't find out. Mr. Thorne and Mr. Warner find absolutely nothing wrong with such a system of legalized theft, so long as it's done in accordance with their piece of legislation. God commands just weights and measures at Deuteronomy 25:13 through 16, which is impossible unless we use something as money that can be weighed or measured. Populists say, however, trust government to keep honest books that tally expenditures and receipts of absolutely nothing. God says, "Cursed be the man that trusteth in man," some of whom run a confidence game called banking, by the way. "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Jeremiah 17, verse 5 and 9. According to Scripture, the reason we should want to keep this economic principle of just weights and measures is so that our, quote, days may be lengthened in the land which the Lord our God gave unto us, at Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 15. Well, you may not believe that God gave us this land, but you certainly ought to believe that God's taking it away from us. Why? According to His commandment, we're violating this commandment, and this was a commandment of promise. If you don't have or keep just weights and measures, you're going to be dispossessed from the land. And you see, we're just tenants on the land in America. You're going to have to look long and hard to find somebody who has a low deal title. David Rockefeller might, but he's got the gold. Anyway, it's a two-tier system. It's their club, and you ain't in it.